everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I'm here for another short story scraps. We are catching up, as I did not have to expect to, on the lovely Edith Holden Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady for the month of March. I had planned to post this in March, but then I got a cold, and you know when I get a cold, I get like a little bit of a lost voice, so I didn't want to be too quiet. So this is March of 1906. As in the Roman years, so in the English ecclesiastical calendar used till 1752, this was the first month and the legal year commenced on the 25th of March. Scotland changed the first month to January in 1599. This month was called Martius by the Romans from the god Mars, and it received the name Hildmonath, i.e. loud or stormy month, from the Anglo-Saxons. The days of note are March the 1st, St. David, March the 12th, St. Gregory, March 17th, St. Patrick, March 25th, Lady Day. And then we begin with just a lovely illustration of some sheep holding up this banner with this verse, "A peck of March dust is worth a king's ransom." So many misties in March, so many frosties in May. March borrowed from Avril 3 days, and they were ill. The first is all be snot and sleet, the next is all be rain and wheat. The last is all be sigh freeze, sall gar the birds stick to the trees. March'll search ye, April try ye, May'll tell ye whether live or die ye. March hack ham comes in like a lion, goes out like a lamb. And then we just see these incredible horses marching in a field, working with this little black birds in the corner, just watching them work as a man plows the field with his plow horses. And then we turn the page and we get into the month of March. It begins with a verse from Bryant. "The stormy March has come at last, with wind and cloud and changing skies. I hear the rushing of the blast that through the snowy valley flies. Ah, passing, few are they who speak wild stormy month in praise of thee. Yet though thy winds are loud and bleak, thou art a welcome month to me. For thou to northern lands again the glad and glorious sun dost bring, and thou hast joined the gentle train, and wear'st the gentle name of spring. And in thy region of blast and storm smiles many a long bright summer day, when the changed winds are soft and warm, and heaven puts the blue of May." Then we move into a verse from Norman Gale. "What did springtime whisper? O ye rivulets, waking from your trance so sad, pleased to welcome fisher lad with his little nets. Speed, for summer's in the air, prattle, for the breeze is warm, chatter by the otter's lair, bubble past the ivied farm. Wake the primrose on the banks, bid the violet ope her eyes, hurry in a flood of thanks, underneath serener skies. What a revel's coming soon, fairies trooping o'er the leaves, making magic by the moon, crowned with wood anemones. What a haunted heart the thrush nurses in the blackthorn bush, full of splendid songs to sing, cheery welcomes of the spring. Spring is come." That's a lovely verse. That's absolutely beautiful. Then we move on to the most beautiful images of a song thrush and their young. The song thrush is in a nest with 2 little babies, and then she's also illustrated the song thrush's egg, which is this lovely little blue egg with these little black speckles. It's very, very sweet. Then we have another verse from Norman Gale called "A Creed." "How sweet the hedge that hides a cunning nest, and curtains off a patient, bright-eyed thrush, with 5 small worlds beneath her mottled breast. Though life is growing nearer day by day, each globe she loves as yet is mute and still, her bosom's beauty slowly wears away. At last the thin blue veils are backward furled, existence wakes and pipes into a bird. As infant music bursts into the world, and now the mother thrush is proud and gay. She has her cottage and her pretty young to feed and lull when western skies turn gray." Then we move into page 25, March the 1st, and we begin to see some journal entries from Edith, which is really my favorite part of her books. March has come in like a lamb with a warm wind and rain from the southwest. March 4th, glorious sunshine. First warm day of spring. As the skylarks up and singing in the blue, went for a walk, found the coltsfoot and procumbent field speedwell in flower, and down at the edge of a copse where a little stream ran on a sunny bank, I found a great many primrose roots with quite large buds in the midst of their crowns of green leaves. The celandine buds too were very large. Another week or two of warm weather will bring them quite out. Everywhere the birds were very active, and such a chorus of voices from every hedge and tree. The 6th of March. Tonight a toad was discovered jumping about in the hall. It must have come in through the garden door, which has been standing open all day. Another day of bright sunshine. The leaf buds in the hedges have been making wonderful progress the last 3 days of sunshine, and the elm blossom has opened out wide, showing all its little antlers and filaments. In the morning I visited the field where the daffodils grow. The buds are all standing up above the grass, standing up straight like little green lance heads among their spears of blue-green leaves. March the 10th. Cycled to the withy beds within half a mile of Bushwood. It was a day dull with frequent showers of rain, so the country looked rather cold and gray. There was no sunshine to light up the ruddy blossom on the elm and alder trees. As I cycled between the hedges, I saw numbers of birds carrying on their house-building operations. I went a little out of my way, down to the lane to Kingswood, to visit the steep banks where the blue periwinkle grows. There were numbers of flowers just opening. I only found one blossom fully expanded. The beds of white violets in the bank were where the periwinkle used to grow that I had come to see. Some were way off the road, and I had to carry my cycle nearly a quarter of a mile down a steep, muddy faudrasette thick with thorns, with high banks on each side. On these sheltered banks I found numbers of small celandine blossom and the first flowers of the little strawberry-leaved cinquefoil. So then we move into just a stunning illustration of coltsfoot, lesser celandine, the young leaves of the hawthorn and the common elm, beautiful flowers and branches that she's illustrated. And then we have a lovely page that has this lovely verse, and it's surrounded by her hand-drawn little flowers, lines written in early spring from William Wordsworth. I heard 1,000 blended notes while in a grove I sat reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. Through primrose tufts in that green bower the periwinkle trailed its wreaths, and 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made it seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. If this belief from heaven be sent, if such be nature's holy plan, have I not reason to lament that what man has made of man? We then continue into journal entries, March 10th. When I got to the bottom of the lane, I set my bicycle against a bank and picnicked on a fence. A beautiful jay, in all the glory of his spring plumage, flew screaming across the lane into a spinney of larch trees opposite. He seemed to resent the intrusion of a human being in such an unfrequented spot. I was glad to find the white periwinkle still trailing its wreaths on the bank, but the flowers were only in bud, and the violets, too, were just uncurling their buds under the fresh green leaves. Among the notes of the numerous birds, I recognized those of the thrush, blackbird, hedge, sparrow, skylark, wren, great tit, chaffinch, greenfinch, pied wagtail, and yellow bunting. The latter was especially conspicuous. perched up on top of the hedge with his bright yellow plumage, repeating his cry. One can hardly call it a song, with its last peculiar, long drawn-out note over and over again. A little bit of bread and no cheese, the country people liken it to. In Cumberland, they say it says, "Devil, devil, do not touch me, ee." The bird is called Yeldrin and yellow yowley in Scotland. I noticed that the white periwinkle blossoms have 5 petals, while the blue have only 4. I wonder if this is always so. March 12th. After a wet, windy day, we woke this morning to a regular snowstorm. The air was full of whirling flakes, but in the midst of it all, I heard a skylark singing. March 13th. Another heavy fall of snow in the night. The cold has almost silenced the birds this morning. Numbers of them come onto the lawn to be fed. The starlings and cockchaffinches look especially gay just now in their spring coats. March 14th. Hard frost in the morning and bright sunshine. The sun has great power now, and he soon began to make the snow disappear. In the afternoon I went to the violet wood, and to my surprise I found a number of glowing purple blossoms in the sheltered glades of the wood. On the way home I found a robin's nest in the bank of the lane. It was evidently just finished. This is the first finished nest I have seen this year. March 20th. Went to the daffodil field again. The buds are just breaking into yellow. Found 2 thrushes' nests, both in holly bushes. One nest was empty. The bird was sitting on the other. She looked at me with such brave, bright eyes. I could not disturb her, much as I would have liked to peep at her speckled blue eggs. I found some of the green flowers of the moschetel. And then we moved to pages 29 and 30, and it is just one of the most stunning spreads of this book, honestly. We have catkins of goat willow in March, blue and white periwinkle, chaffinches, and daffodils. And she has just illustrated these incredible birds, these pussy willows, the daffodils opening and being in various stages. And then she shares a few different poems and verses. So from Shakespeare, when daffodils begin to peer, with hey, the doxy over the dale, why then comes in the sweet of the year, and the red blood reigns in the winter's pale. Also from Shakespeare, daffodils that come before the swallow dares, and take the winds of March with beauty. And then she also has written at the bottom here, Daffy Down Dilly is come up to town in her yellow petticoat and her green gown. And she does include, for the periwinkle, Vinca minor, and the daffodils, Narcissus, Pseudonarcissus, so the genus names. And then the following page, we have a bunch of illustrations of just the loveliest birds' eggs and strawberry-leaved cinquefoil. She's drawn the house sparrow starling's eggs, the wren, the rook, blackbird, robin, song thrush, missel thrush, hedge sparrow, and she just notes these are the eggs of birds which begin nesting in March. And on the following page we move into verses again, first from Wordsworth. And hark, how blithe the throstle sings. He too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. And then from R. Tannahill, gloomy winters now away. Soft the westland breezes blaw. Mang the birk so Stanley Shaw, the mavis sings futureo. Towering o'er the Newton woods, lavrocks fan the snow-white clouds. Sciller saws with downy buds adorned the banks Sabrinio. And it makes me think like she was reading and quoting a lot of literature from England, obviously, but also Scotland, perhaps Ireland, just a real education of just different parts of European writing. And I personally find as I read these texts, like some of them can be a little challenging because it's not my native tongue, although it is, based all in that Latin language. But it's interesting, like I think about how people read at that time versus, now. There's a certain level of like intelligence that I have always associated with like reading the classics. Like I think that's why like as you grow up you start to, in high school maybe, is the first time that you find yourself coming into yourself, coming into your own intelligence a little as maybe you start to study English literature or Latin or something where you're really sort of taking apart a text that's not a foreign language necessarily, but one that you need to understand the contexts of differently, and maybe you need to think about the history or the geography or the social climate at the time. Like, it just kind of connects everything through language, and I see that a lot in this book as I read the text. So then we move into another Burns short verse. In days when daisies check the sod and blackbirds whistle clear, we honest joy our hearts will bound to greet this coming year. And then from Robert Browning, hark where my blossoming pear tree in the hedge leans to the field and scatters on the clover blossoms and dewdrops at the bent spray's edge. That's the wise thrush, he sings his song twice over, lest you should think he never could recapture that first fine, careless rapture. Such a romantic writer, that Robert Browning. And then this page ends with a beautiful illustration of the nest and eggs of the blackbird, and a little verse from E.B. Browning, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, so the spouse and exchanger of letters with Robert Browning. If you really want to be romantic and dazzled by a beautiful exchange, I highly recommend finding the letters of Robert and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Beautiful letters, correspondence. So let me continue. Then the thrushes sang and shook my pulses, and the elms new leaves. So March is quite a substantial chapter. So we move into the next page and we get back into the journaling. March the 25th. Showers of snow and sleet. Quite a heavy snowstorm in the afternoon. March the 28th. Gathered some of the young crimson catkins of the black poplar. The last few days have been very cold and dry, with keen north wind and any quantity of March dust in evidence. This morning I saw some frog spawn, which had been brought in from a pond, together with some caddis grubs in their funny little cases of sticks and straws. The grub looked very smart. He had stuck his house all over with bits of bright green and rush and water plant. Cycled to Bushwood. Oh, this is the 31st. Cycled to Bushwood, a still gray day with beautifully dry roads. March is going out like a lamb. I did not go into the wood, which will be carpeted with primroses in a week or two's time, but I found quaint and there's a little word here, like tidies of primrose and sweet violets, both blue and white, on the banks of the fields and the roadside. I found the first of dog violet I have seen in blossom this year at the top of Dick's Lane. The cowslips are only in bud yet, but everywhere the celandine made the ditches bright, and the strawberry-leaved cinquefoil spangled the banks. I saw 2 robins and 2 blackbirds' nests, none with eggs in. I saw numbers of sweet birds as I spun along between the hedges. A tiny greenish bird flashed across the road. I thought for a minute it was a warbler, but as it emerged into sight again for a minute, it was it was a warbler, but as it emerged into sight again for a moment in the hedge, I saw it was a golden-crested wren. I have not seen any of our summer visitors yet. The wheatear is the first to arrive in England, I believe, but that bird is not found in this part of the country. The chiffchaff is generally the first to put in an appearance here, and he is closely followed by the willow warbler. March has been a very cold month, but dry on the whole. There were 2 or 3 bright, genial days in the first week that were like a foretaste of summer. And then she's illustrated the wood muscatel and moss cups, beautiful moss cups. And on the following page, she's back to the verses. It's funny, like the page that I just read, I'm sorry if I struggled it a little bit. The writing, the handwriting is, it sort of gets bigger and smaller, and it gets closer together and further apart, which makes it challenging, right, when you're reading line to line. So we move into, from Winter's Tale by Shakespeare, Violets dim, yet sweeter than the lids of Juno's eyes, or Cytherea's breath. Then from Christina Rossetti, as violets, recluse and sweet, cheerful as daisies, unaccounted rare, still sunward gazing from a lowly seat, seek sweetening wintry air. And from Burns, the snowdrop and primrose our woodlands adore, and violets bathe mid the wheat of the morn. From Sir Henry Wotton, ye violets that first appear by your pure purple mantles known. And then from Shelley, and the spring arose in the garden fair, like the spirit of love felt everywhere, and each flower and herb on earth's dark breast rose from the dreams of its wintry rest. The snowdrop and the violet arose from the ground with warm rain wet, and their breath was mixed with sweet odor sent from the turf like the voice and the instrument. And then she has illustrated sweet violets very beautifully. And that wraps up April. So thank you so much for joining me for this read-through of March. Rather, we move into April next, which I will hopefully get out in April this time. So take very good care of you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.